Mm.
Good morning. We are here today to discuss Parshas Ki Savo. It is still the month of Elul, and the title for today's shiur is To Live in the Choosing. To live in the choosing. Chodesh Elul is sponsored in memory of our Oma, Mali Tenenbaum, whose wisdom supported all of us. May her neshama, Aliyah, love her children and great-grandchildren. I just want to comment that, as I mentioned in the past, thank God we are very close to these families, not only to the parents, grandparents, and the children, but their extended families, not only the people who are sponsoring. And we just also saw that Mrs. Slomiansky just signed in. And one of the very beautiful things about these dedications is that they have been connecting us not only with the people that I know, but with the extended families. And I so appreciate that and look forward to more of that with more children and grandchildren and samachos for everyone. And of course, we wish that our ancestors, and in this case, Mali Tenenbaum, her neshama should have an aliyah. We wish that for all of our. This month, Chodesh Elul is sponsored by Nat and Eti Perez and family for the success of their children. And Le'ilui Nishmas David ben Masoda Zichrono Livracha, David Biton, beloved father and grandfather. His dedication and great midos are dearly missed on his fifth yahrzeit. And of course, it applies to all these dedications. We appreciate not only the support, but the relationships and the great things and the great people that are involved with us and their extended families. Thank you to the Perez family. We are so appreciative of all of you. Also, this week, we are dedicating the shiur that, may I mention the connection to our supporter, Mrs. Lipton? May I mention? Right, so we are dedicating this shiur that Mrs. Lipton's grandson, Yehuda Yonasan ben Esther Bracha, should have a Refu'ah Shleima. He's having surgery right now, and we wish him a Refu'ah Shleima. And of course, our learning should be a merit for that, and a merit for all the things that we are davening for all people and for all Cholei Yisrael. So, as I mentioned, we are discussing today Parshas Ki Savo. And I'm excited about this topic, which is called To Live in the Choosing. And we are going to focus on the beginning of the Parsha, but it does relate to the middle portion of the Parsha as well, and by extension, the rest of the Parsha. And of course, part of the question is, what is the connection between these different parts of the Parsha? The beginning of the Parsha is Parshas Bikurim. The mitzvah of Bikurim is the mitzvah of bringing the first fruit of the 7 species of fruit to the Beis HaMikdash, to the Kohen, and declaring in front of HaShem that we have recognition for HaShem taking us out from Egypt and giving us this land. And it's a huge mitzvah in the Torah. And obviously part of the question is what's it doing right here, but also how does it connect to the rest of the Parsha, which is primarily about entering Eretz Yisrael, setting up the stones that had the Torah on them, both in the Yarden and then in Har Grizim and Har Eval, Mount Grizim and Mount Eval, and the blessings and the curses that were recited there and answered Amen by all of the people with the different tribes on the different mountains. It seems a little incongruous, Bikurim, some of the laws of tithing, and then all of these warnings and blessings about the various specific commandments upon entering Eretz Yisrael. Okay. So here are our questions. Number 1, why is the mitzvah of Bikurim triggered only after Eretz Yisrael is conquered and divided and inherited, rather than immediately after any fields are possessed and producing crops? So in other words, the Torah says very clearly that when you get into Eretz Yisrael and you settle it, you inherit it, which means after the conquest of it and after it is divided into the various tribes, that's when the mitzvah of Bikurim, this mitzvah of bringing first fruit to the Kohen and making this declaration in front of Hashem, that's when it's triggered. That means when we enter the land and we take over a certain area, and for whatever reason people start, taking over land, and in theory we could, produce crops, there's no mitzvah of Bikurim yet. No, mitzvah of Bikurim only happens after we are considered to have inherited territorial Eretz Yisrael and it's divided. Why? If there's something special about the fruit of the land, and if we are in control of lands that are producing these 7 species, why is the mitzvah of Bikurim not triggered right away? That's question number 1. Now, as hopefully we'll see that this topic, to live in the choosing, is correlated to Bikurim, I'm hopeful that it's also going to help us with all the goings on in the world, like we know, which are so difficult. Most recent, of course, is the attack in Qatar, in Doha, and on Hamas officials, and etc. And of course, the world of public opinion, yada, 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 right? So what I'm hoping that this Parsha can help us do is to achieve what this Parsha actually concludes with, which is a question that we're going to talk about as well in a moment, about the happiness after bringing Bikurim. So happiness would be really nice, right? So how do we get that? So we're gonna speak about that as well. So question number 2 is, why indeed is a person obligated to bring new fruits from only the 7 species, which are, by the way, wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, and dates, but we do not need to bring it from potatoes or oranges or other things that the land produces. It's only these 7 species that we have to bring of the new fruits. Why not from everything, right? After all, we should appreciate everything. So why is it only these 7 fruits? Question number 3, that sentence of happiness, the last verse in this paragraph of Bikurim says as follows. After the whole procedure is done, right, where you brought the fruits and the Kohen waved it with you, you left it in front of the Mizbeach for the Kohanim to eat, the last verse, this is chapter 26, sentence 11 says, and you shall enjoy, or you should be happy, the samachta v'chol hatov, you should be happy with all the good. Asher nasan Hashem, asher nasan l'cha Hashem elokecha l'beisecha, that Hashem your God has given to you and to your household. That would seem to be a perfect ending, even though we're going to talk about what is the happiness doing over here. But the real problem is the rest of the phrase. In addition to saying you should be happy in all the good that Hashem your God has given to you and your household, it says you and the Levi and the convert that is in your midst. Now the problem is twofold. Number 1, why is there happiness now over all the things that Hashem has given to us? We could say we're happy for these 7 species, or if you want to say by extension, we're happy with produce. Okay, but it doesn't say that. The Torah is very clear. You should be happy with all the good that Hashem has given you. Why does it somehow extend to everything that a person has, right? We're only bringing a gift on the produce. We're not mentioning the house that we own. We're not mentioning the relationships that we have, the blessing of children, for example. That would seemingly be part of the good that Hashem bestows upon us, those who are blessed enough to have these very wonderful things in our lives, these blessings in our lives. So why does it suddenly say, you bring the Bikurim and now you're happy with everything, right? And also, why specifically do we get happy now when we're giving things away, not receiving anything? It sounds like only if you bring the Bikurim, which are these first fruit, and you leave them there in front of the altar for the Kohen to enjoy, that then you become happy. You should be happy when the land is producing the crops, or you should be happy when you're gathering in all of your crops like we celebrate on the holiday of Sukkot. Why is there a real-time effect of becoming happy after we leave the Bikurim in the hands of the Kohen positioned in front of the altar? Okay, but additionally to that, we have the following problem. Who are the Levi and the convert? Let's think about this for a minute. The Levi and the convert do not inherit land in Eretz Yisrael, and in general, they are not seen as the main tribal keepers of the land. Even though it's true that either a Levi or a convert is able to acquire land in Eretz Yisrael, they do not have typical ownership of the inheritance land of Israel. So that means that they also typically do not bring this offering of Bikurim. So when the Torah says, you will be happy after you do this mitzvah, you and the Levi and the convert, to what is the Torah referring? If it's referring to giving them things, that's not true. We don't give bikurim to the Levi and to the convert. They don't receive the bikurim. And if it's referring to if they happen to own land, that then they do bring bikurim, which is true, and there are differences of law that I don't want to get too technical about right now between the Levi and the convert. Why is the Torah emphasizing it? Those are really out-of-the-box situations. That's not the norm, if you will. So why is the Torah, specifically in the sentence of you become happy through this mitzvah, enunciating or emphasizing a reference to the Levi and to the convert? Seemingly, it does not apply to them. So that's, I think, an important overall, very simple reading question that we need to address. So since for the most part, the Levi and the convert do not bring bikurim, they certainly are never gifted bikurim, why are they mentioned as becoming happy? And finally, we have also a very interesting thing here, and it's called the mitzvah of Vidui Ma'aser. So the paragraph that follows the paragraph of bringing bikurim is a mitzvah in the Torah that when we have all the tithes that we are obligated to give, after every 3-year cycle, at the end of a 3-year cycle, and it's actually in the holiday of Pesach, after all the tithings should have been given, that on the last day of Pesach, so let's leave it simple that there's only one last day, so the 7th day of Pesach, a person is obligated to declare in front of HaShem, and by the way, ideally, but it's not a caveat, but ideally they make this declaration in the Holy Temple, that they have indeed given all the tithes, they have taken everything out, given it to all the people, taken whatever needs to be taken up to Jerusalem and eaten it there. They have done everything. That's its own commandment in the Torah, emphasizing that indeed they have fulfilled all of their obligations related to all of the tithings. It's called Vidui Ma'aser, which technically means the confession of Ma'aser. We translate it probably as the declaration of Ma'aser, and in this case that means all the tithings. That's the commandment. So, first of all, it's interesting that the Torah places the commandment here and not in the book of Leviticus, which would seem more appropriate. Even bikurim, in theory, could have been earlier, which also might have been more appropriate. Fine. But also, in general, we have many, many mitzvahs in the Torah, some of them many details associated with them. So, for example, circumcision, a huge mitzvah in the Torah, there are certain details of the mitzvah, everything from the blessings that are supposed to be said, how it needs to be very meticulously done, certain aspects of it that will disqualify it if it's not done correctly. That's just an example. Eating the Paschal lamb has many mitzvahs involved, and we don't have an obligation after we did it to make a declaration, hey, we did everything. Right? We don't generally have a commandment to make a declaration in front of HaShem, hey, we did everything that you said. Why is this commandment a big idea in the Torah that at the end of every 3-year cycle of tithings, a person needs to make this declaration, by the way, I did everything correctly, and ideally in the temple, and ideally on Pesach, which is also fascinating that it comes out that way. Okay, so those are our basic questions. So a quick recap is, why is the mitzvah of the first fruit, bikurim, only after the land is conquered and divided and inherited, rather than immediately after they happen to get any lands in the possession of the Jewish people? Question number 2 is, why is the person obligated to bring new fruits from only the 7 species and not everything that the land produces? You know, the land of Israel is incredibly robust in its ability to produce, as has been evidenced by the last 70, 80 years in Eretz Yisrael. Many people have referred to it as the breadbasket of the Middle East, right? It's not only these particular fruits, so why not bring some of everything? Also, what's this idea that bringing bikurim brings happiness, that these first fruits are supposed to engender happiness, and specifically about everything good that HaShem has given us? How is it relevant to the Levi and to the convert? And finally, this mitzvah of vidui, bikurim, declaring that I did everything when it comes to the tithing, is an unusual mitzvah in the Torah, in that normally we don't have to make a declaration, hey, we did everything that you commanded us, HaShem. So why is there a mitzvah in this case? I know there's a lot of details, but there are other commandments that have a lot of details. So what I'd like to do is make a suggestion, an overall philosophical suggestion, that the Torah is teaching us here, and specifically through the vehicle of Eretz Yisrael. So the first point that's very important is that the mitzvah of Bikurim is not a general commandment. This mitzvah of the first fruit is not a general commandment to have gratitude or to be thankful to HaShem for everything. It's specifically these 7 species, which means that it's a special appreciation of the gift of Eretz Yisrael. Right? If it's these 7 species that we're obligated to bring, and these 7 species are considered the praiseworthy fruit of the land of Eretz Yisrael, that's the way the Talmud refers to it. We even have a special blessing for it after we've consumed one of these 7 fruits, that these are very special and that it is indicative of the special quality of the land of Israel. That means if we're bringing these fruit and we're delivering it there, and we're saying we appreciate HaShem, you took us out of Egypt and you gave us this land, it's a special appreciation for the land of Israel, not a general appreciate HaShem concept. So now that that's true, let's understand what is this special thing about Eretz Yisrael. So one simple thing, of course, is that Eretz Yisrael reminds us of the unique relationship that HaShem has established with the Jewish people. HaShem never bequeathed a particular land to a particular nation. When it comes to the Jewish people, he gave them a particular land, the land of Israel. So part of that, I would suggest, to take it to another level, is that, as we have mentioned, the difference between HaShem taking care of us for 40 years in the desert and us living in the land that Hashem has promised to give us in perpetuity, that difference is that the permanent dwelling in Eretz Yisrael is our job. So, for example, we say in the Shema every day that if we do the commandments that Hashem has, commanded us to love Hashem your God and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, I will give you the rain in your land in its time, the early rain and the later rain, and you will gather your grain and your wine and your oil, right? So that is a responsibility on us. Yes, Rabbi Yechiel, there are other lands that also, you're correct, there are other lands that Hashem has designated for people, the difference for another time. Thank you for pointing that out. That's correct. Important to make that qualification. So the bottom line is, for the most part, right? And we know that Eretz Yisrael is its own special land, et cetera, et cetera. Fine. So now I'm just pointing out that the difference between Hashem taking care of us or us living in the land that Hashem has told us to inherit and to live there in a permanent fashion is that we in the land of Israel are responsible for the blessings and the curses that come our way in the land of Israel. And it's up to us. Hashem has given us free choice, and Hashem has given us very particular commandments, one of them being to appreciate the fact that he gave us this land. But the key is that we have the responsibility. Now, obviously, the responsibility is a major message. We need to understand that we have tremendous power in what happens in this land, in our ability to stay in this land. That's great. But there's another very important key, and this is something that applies to all of us in really all aspects of our lives. The minute that we understand that we're celebrating not only Eretz Yisrael, but when we bring these new fruit, we're not only celebrating the land of Israel, we're celebrating the fact that we have responsibility in this land. That means we need to think about the fact, why do we need to do that every year? Every year, we need to remember that Hashem gave us this land, and this is really, really critically important. And the answer is that this requirement forces the recognition that the responsibility of this gift is that we need to always remember that it's a gift on a constant basis. Every year, we need to remember that this land is a gift. Now, whether it's a gift because it's a special land, because it produces these very special crops, or it's a gift because it's indicative of the unique relationship that we have Hashem, that's great. But the point is, we always need to bear in mind that it's a gift. That means that we are not only appreciating the gift that we have, but the gift of the responsibility that comes along with it. Because at the end of the day, it is our responsibility to live in this land and to be successful in the living of this land, and that is squarely on us. So we're not only appreciating the gift, but we're appreciating the fact that we have responsibility for that gift, because guess what? The greatest thing for a person is to earn. And when we recognize that God gave us the responsibility of this gift, that means we are earning it. We are able to deserve it, so to speak. And that is a huge gift, because it means that we can make it ours and that we can truly feel proud of our successes as being something that is a product of our choosing. Because when something is our responsibility and we continue to fulfill that responsibility and we recognize that we're choosing to fulfill that responsibility, we're really owning it. And we can really live in that gift of making it ours. When we are in a state of full awareness that we are choosing, we truly experience the vitality of our lives. To be fully present, which people love to talk about, to be present. You're with your children, you're at a special occasion, but to really be present in that moment of any experience of life is to not only appreciate the opportunity of having the experience of being in that moment, but even more powerful is to recognize the choices that you made that brought you to that moment. And to be in constant awareness that we make choices that bring us to moments requires that we constantly feel that we are choosing. And that's what I mean by to live in our choosing. So here's a fascinating related subject. I spoke about it some this past Friday in our shiur. I spoke about it last week in yeshiva. It's a subject that the yeshiva is going into, and it's very important. It's true about all of our relationships. We're going to now talk about it in the context of marriage. A fascinating related subject to this topic is that when it comes to Jewish marriage, the Torah does not require, for the most part, there's some discussion here, I just don't want to get too technical, but for the most part, we don't have to get up and get married. That's not one of what we call the 613 obligations. It could be that we fulfill an obligation. That's an argument in the early commentaries, meaning it could be that we get credit for getting married, but it's not like we're obligated to get up and get married. We're obligated to have children, but in theory, if a person had children without marriage, that would, in theory, be what the Torah commanded, in theory. Okay, again, more technical another time. But even more interesting to me than that is that when the Torah, I shouldn't say that, equally interesting to me as that, is that the Torah says a case where divorce happens, and this is in last week's Parsha, and the Torah says that divorce happens if a man finds something morally objectionable about his wife. In Hebrew, it's called ervas davar, a nakedness of the matter. And it's important to note that that is the wording when the Torah uses all illicit relationships, or almost all, it refers to it as an uncovering of the nakedness. Okay? And over here, we're talking about a husband and wife that are married, and he finds something that is a nakedness of a matter in his wife. The Torah does not clearly say what, and that's a subject for another time. I spoke about some, that on Friday and the different things that it could be referring to. But the point that I want to make here is that notably absent from the Torah in this case, when a man marries a woman and he finds something morally objectionable and a nakedness of a matter, the Torah does not command the man to give a divorce. Again, that's not a commandment in the Torah to get divorced in that case. So I find that fascinating, just like it's fascinating the Torah doesn't really command to get married. But my point is that the Torah is really saying marriage, the efficacy of marriage, the quality of the marriage is in your hands. You and your wife need to decide that you want to get married, not that we're commanding you to get married, meaning not that the Torah, not that God is commanding you to get married. And in that marriage, you and your wife need to make sure that it's not an erevas davar, which I'll explain in a moment, but that it's a good marriage. It's a happy marriage, if you want to use that terminology. It's a fulfilling marriage. It's a meaningful marriage. So many words that could be used. But the point is that it's the responsibility of the partners in the marriage. And guess what? If you really choose it and you really make it good, it's really enjoyable. And it's really great. And it's fulfilling. And you can be really happy. But if you don't, And if you don't live in the choosing of it, it's not really good. It's not really great. But the only way that the Torah can really emphasize that is by putting the entire responsibility of the getting married or the getting divorced on the participants in the marriage, not an outside force mandating it. So here's the point. Every day we get up in the morning, and how often have we or people that we know struggled with getting up in the morning? Every day in this country now, in America, we get to decide, do we want to walk around as Jews or do we want to kind of blend in to the background? Every day in the land of Israel, you get to decide, you want to live in this land and fight with all the terror and the horrors that are happening on a daily basis. We had a horrific tragedy happening this week in Jerusalem, in the land of Israel, where 6 people were brutally murdered and other people terribly injured. Completely innocent people going about their daily lives on the bus. They're not hiding terrorists. They're not even in the terrible, terrible tragedies. Now, same thing is true in a marriage. Every day you get to get up and say, is this a marriage that I want or not? Am I going to make it good or not? But most people live the lives that they're living because at one point they chose it, and now that's just the way it is. How many people, unfortunately, stay in marriages that are not good for the sake of the children, or for economics, or because literally it's too expensive to get divorced, or they don't want the shame of it, or any other reason? The point is, they're not choosing the marriage. They're not re-choosing every day what they chose on their original wedding day. They're just doing it because that's the way it's been. And the same is true of so many aspects of our lives, the jobs that we have, the friends that we have, everything, the problems that we deal with on a daily basis. You say, okay, I guess so, because that's what I've chosen in the past. As opposed to, this is the challenge that I choose. This is my life. I chose it before, I choose it today, and I choose to do with it today what I can do to make it better today. Those are two extremely different paradigms on how to live life. And what the Torah is saying with this major commandment in the Torah, what the Torah is saying is that if you actually choose Eretz Yisrael, you know what you're really choosing? You're choosing a life of choosing, because the gift of Eretz Yisrael is a huge, humongous responsibility. There's no doubt, as we see today, the fact that we're going to fight anti-Semitism. There's no doubt, as we see today, that we're going to fight tragically with each other. But we collectively chose it, and we took responsibility for it. And how do you know? Because before we conquered any city in the land of Israel, you know what we did? We stood on 2 mountains, all the Jewish people, and we pronounced the blessings and the cursings, and the entire people answered in a loud voice. This is explicit in the sentences. Amen. Who wants to answer amen to being cursed? Really? I always, remember, like thinking to myself on this Parsha, just envisioning, cursed is the person who does this, and the entire people answer, amen. Really? One of those things, by the way, is lashon hara. One of those things is speaking slander. And we're announcing at the top of our lungs, amen. Cursed is the person who speaks slander. That's amazing. It's amazing to be enthusiastic about that curse. But the answer is, if you understand that speaking lashon hara is terrible, and you choose to take responsibility for it by undertaking the curse that comes along with it, then you're choosing to be self-responsible for your own good and for the good of society, and that yields tremendous happiness. So what the Torah says here by Bikurim, and the reason that it's juxtaposed with these other commandments in the Torah, we're going to talk about the Vidui Maaser in a second, but the Torah is really saying, if you want to become happy over all of the good in your life, not only the 7 species of the land, not only all the other produce of the land, not only over the land, but over all the good, your marriage, your children, your community, all the incredible things that are in your life, you have to choose choosing. And the way we choosing in its ultimate sense is by choosing Eretz Yisrael and all of the responsibilities that go along with it. And every single year saying, thank you, HaShem, for this responsibility of the land of Israel, because it means that you are giving us the gift of responsibility and our choosing. And then we can literally become happy with all of the good in our lives. You know, an amazing thing, literally an amazing thing in psychology and about all relationships is that if you love someone, the faults don't really matter. Not to say that you don't want to deal with them, and not to say that they're not frustrating, but it does not stop you from loving them, because they become integrated into the whole person. And you choose that too. You choose that challenge because you choose this person. But when you don't really choose this person and you don't choose the responsibility of this person, then everything matters. Nothing is good. The way they talk is not good. The way they walk is not good. The way they look at you is not, nothing is good. But the minute that you know that this is what you chose, there could be literally horribly difficult challenges. There can be handicaps. There can be mental illnesses. There could be emotional. There could be so many things wrong. But you chose this person, and it's all good. And it's all part of a blessing that you get to have that person in your life as your whatever part, they play in your life in whatever relationship capacity. And that's the way to become good and happy with everything. And then the Torah tells us in the concluding sentence that if you really choose the responsibility of Eretz Yisrael, everybody in your land will learn the beautiful gift of happiness that comes with choosing your life. Even the people that don't technically choose the gift of Eretz Yisrael because they were not gifted it the same way, that includes the Levi and that includes the convert, everybody in the society will become happy because they will learn the lesson of choosing your gifts in your life. I choose the gift of being a convert. I choose the gift of being a Levi. I choose the gift that that's the way that I was created to associate with God and the Jewish people that way. I was chosen to serve and to not really get territorial acquisition as a tribe in the land of Israel. That is the Levite. I choose everything. Not only because technically there might be a case where sometimes they bring a bikurim, a first fruits offering, but rather because the whole society is built on a happiness of choosing the responsibilities that we have, feeling the privilege of that, enjoying the gift of that, and having the opportunity to live in the moment every day of the choosing of all of these wonderful things with all of their associated challenges. And then we can all become happy in every aspect of our lives. Now, part of what the Torah then tells us is, number one, because that's such a key responsibility, and that the land of Israel is such a key responsibility, and all of your responsibilities to all the people in the land of Israel, to the gifts that you give to the Kohen, the gifts that you give to the Levi, the gifts that you give to the poor people, all of those gifts, and including the gifts to the orphan and the widow and the convert, all of those are part of the 3-year cycle of gifts as a society collectively that we commit to when we inherit Eretz Yisrael. And when you take that really seriously as a foundational focal point of the entire nation, by not only doing that, but by taking the responsibility to declare at the end of every 3-year cycle of tithings that you've done your job, then you're taking care of the entire society. And that's when God looks down in this very famous phrase that the Torah tells us in chapter 26, sentence 15. God, look down from your high dwelling place in the heavens and bless your Jewish nation and the land that you have given to us like you promised, that it will be a land flowing with milk and honey, meaning it's not good enough to bring bikurim. It's not even good enough to live in the choosing. You need to live in the collective responsibility of the whole nation, living that way, in the whole nation being unified and being taken care of with this paradigm that we take responsibility for choosing and we take responsibility for the whole society. God gives us incredible blessing based on that. Now, I'm going to mention that our dear friend Joseph Vital wrote a really incredible essay that I'll be posting probably this week, and if not this week, then soon. Maybe it will be a Rosh Hashanah message. I'm not yet sure. But the idea is to recognize the wholeness of our nation and the collective responsibility that we have, which, as we just mentioned, is part of the commandment that we declare every year, every end of the cycle, of a 3-year cycle, that we did all of that. And of course, before we took one piece of land in Eretz Yisrael, we stood on those 2 mountains. We declared our collective responsibility for that. That is how we create a society that can truly heal itself, and a society of Jews that will live in this world the correct way, be the examples that we need to be, and God will bring an end to all of the pain and suffering that we all continue to experience. But part of our job right now is to not only be proud that we are Jews, but to choose today's challenges that we Jews have. And we have them in spades. Many people are feeling this in the labor market. They're feeling discrimination in academia. We know how terrible it is. Dr. Patterson, our dear friend and scholar, and just such an incredible person, has shared with us his unique position in academia and how hard it is to be able to stand up as a Jew in academia today in the United States of America, and has been for decades. Many of us question how we should present ourselves in public and if we should walk around as Jews or not. We know the horrors of everyday fear in Eretz Yisrael, getting onto the wrong bus at the wrong time. It's bad. At the same time, it's our chosen destiny, and we get to choose it as a nation, not only to be proud, but to say we take responsibility. We take responsibility for our own choices. We take responsibility for our collective societal choices. We take responsibility for our whole society. And when we do that, we can enjoy our lives with tremendous happiness, because we're choosing for incredible, meaningful purposes what we are choosing. And amazingly, it applies to every area of our life. And what the Torah is telling us here is that when you choose it, you become happy. And that's a tremendous blessing that HaShem has given us, that wisdom. And of course, we need to carry it out in all aspects of our lives. So God willing, by literally choosing to get up in the morning and say, I face my day with all of its challenges because I choose to be a servant of God this way for incredibly meaningful purposes. I choose my relationships. I choose my job. I choose whatever is in front of me as part of a meaningful pursuit, and in my service to Hashem, in my service to our nation and to society and the world as a whole, we can be tremendously happy. And that would be a tremendous blessing. Questions or comments, as anybody's thinking if they want to say anything? Let me just mention that I do not believe my father will give a shiur today because of their traveling. And also, God willing, we will continue next week as usual, but I do hope to post Joseph Vital's essay in the near future. Anybody with a question or comment? Hi, Rhoda. Great to see you. Grandson should have a Refu'ah Shleima, Rhoda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Akiva.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, everyone. Have a super day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.